Welcome to My Love of Life Energy. I'm Anna Scott, your host. I love beautiful, rich conversations that reveal the truth, beauty, and uniqueness of each person I meet, and I'm honored to share them with you. Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to my podcast, My Love of Life Energy. And today I have Dr. Harrison with me, and welcome, Dr. Harrison.
Thank you, Anna. This is wonderful.
So I'm continuing. You're in a series of mine where I don't know you, and I am doing a series where people have reached out to me to be asked to be on my podcast. So this is new for me.
Yeah.
And I read a little bit about your bio, and I read some of your book, and I was really taken by what you're doing. So welcome.
Thank you so much. And it's a pleasure to be here. I love being able to spread the word on anything great and human and wonderful. And I feel like that's what you're definitely doing.
Great. So tell me about your book.
Okay. So do you want the long or short version?
I want you to give us the answer that comes from your heart.
Okay. The answer that comes from my heart. So the person featured behind me. So the book is I, Shauna. And it's a story of a homeless, well, formerly homeless now because I've had her housed for 10 years, intersex, which used to be called hermaphrodite. It's a kind of bi anatomy, ambiguous genitalia. She, a woman who inspired a community. And she does struggle with some schizophrenia. And I am a psychologist, but I've never been her psychologist, but we've been in daily contact for 10 years. And the reason that I wrote the book was because I couldn't believe that somebody that was so optimistic and joyous and just so engaged with the community and in crazy fun outfits with, a pink bikini top and a little skirt and just walking around and just doing her best to be neighborly, to engage in people's lives and to be a mentor on the basketball court, to engage little kids, to teach them lessons, could also be unhoused. And that at night, nobody knew that. Everybody just went back into their families and did their thing, and there she was. And I did start to get to know over time after conversations with her that she was unhoused. And long story short, kind of ran a GoFundMe, cried in the parking lot, and called the editor of our local newspaper and have been helping her rebuild her life for the past 10 years. And it's been a mutually rewarding journey.
What drew you to her?
Okay, so my ex-husband, my wonderful ex-husband, was a world-class tennis pro, had coached at the majors. He had long dreadlocks. He was originally from Trinidad when he was younger. And so he was always kind of looking around at the tennis courts, hanging out. And Sean was presenting as Sean for 50 years of her life. Kind of drew my husband's attention because he was like, oh, he looks pretty fit, like 6'5", muscular, also African American. And that was something that, wasn't as common in the tennis courts when we first moved here. And so we kind of put it out of our minds. And a couple of months later, I saw now Shauna with a blonde curly wig and a pretty little top hanging out at the grocery store. And so I asked the Starbucks lady there, the barista, and I said, hey, do you know anything about this person? I noticed that she hangs out here a lot. She said, oh, she's the most interesting person. You have to know her story. And so I was like, okay, that was enough to get me. And so I got her a little drink from Starbucks, went over and just started having a conversation. And it was incredible. It was like she had so much joy. She just was talking about how she'd lived 30 years in La Jolla. Of course, didn't tell me she was unhoused. And I just started to notice over time that there was a little bit of mental struggle that was apparent. I also just enough to keep me kind of curious to want to know more and how I could help. And also, I started to notice that she hung out a lot, and I didn't really feel like she had maybe purposeful employment or gainful employment. So I started, raiding my closet, bringing things to her. Hey, you might like this top, or I noticed you wear a Lululemon something. My daughter has some of those, and one thing led to another.
I feel your kindness and your generosity to humanity, to a human being.
Yeah. I mean, she's kind of hard not to be kind to. She's just so exuberant and full of joy. I am a little bit wired that way, but I will say also in a smaller community where people are just kind of enjoying the surf and sunshine and just, saying hi to people when they walk in the grocery store. it's just one of those things. Sometimes you might need to just say hi and just kind of notice that somebody, maybe they're struggling a little bit, or maybe they just want to engage in a little conversation. And
Is
that's
it,
how it started.
what's your intention? What was your intention for your book? What did you want people to
Okay.
know?
Well, the book came a little later. So there's a story there as well. So I started to get to know Shauna more on a regular basis. So I found myself one night at the grocery store, and I wrote about this in the book, at 11 o'clock at night. And I still can't remember, was I trying to get dog food? I don't remember why 11 o'clock at night. I just know that my ex-husband was like, why are you going? It's like freezing outside. The rain is pelting. Kids were asleep, and I saw Shauna. And that's when I had the aha moment. She does not have a place to go, because she was shivering in the rain, sitting there in super like beach wear. And she was about to start a walk for the night. And I had inquired about where she was going. And she walks 13 miles a day, a half marathon a day. And she calls it her mood walk therapy, as a way to keep kind of her mental distress at bay. And she also sort of became the eyes and ears of the San Diego Police Department, because she would tell them goings on in the middle of the night while she was walking the beat. And so that night I asked her, would you like a hotel room? It's kind of cold. Would you like a hot shower? And she said, oh, yes, ma'am. And she gestured towards the heavens in a way that I will never forget, and just filled with gratitude. And I was like, oh my gosh, imagine if I had never asked. Right. And so I put her up in a hotel, and I said, you know what, Shanna, we're going to get you off the street. I'm never going to have this happen again, where I have to see you like shivering when everyone else is cozy at home. And I left a message, like I said, for the editor of the paper. We ran a GoFundMe, then we got an angel investor, and it was a true miracle that it all fell into place very quickly, because she had no credit history. It's not easy finding a place with those parameters. And so then to fast forward 2 years in, and of course we're meeting every week. We're having acai bowls together, her favorite. We're meeting every week, and I started recording her. I said, I think that people need to know your story, and how you have so much optimism and so much resilience despite everything that's going on. And she said, yeah, I think it's a great idea. I said, maybe we could even turn it into a book. And the second I said that, I'm like, oh no, I have 3 kids at home. One of them with special needs, one of them with a super stretched soccer schedule. How am I going to do this? So of course it took a long time. But 10 years later, here we are. And the other thing was, in the course of that journey and time, so much happened. I mean, COVID happened. We moved her to Palm Springs. I got a life-threatening diagnosis, which was horrendous. And she showed up for me like there was no tomorrow until I got through it all. And it's honestly been the most incredible mutual journey. We spent 3 weeks in Europe. She had never left the country. She hadn't been on an airplane in 17 years. We went to all the pride parades to help her talk about intersex and how confusing that was growing up. So it's been incredible. We started a TikTok account, and I am not a huge social media person in that way. She got 1 million views on one of her posts, because people were just so interested in having a discussion about how she's lived her life. So
I I'm so taken back by this story.
mm,
I mean, there's just, what are the words
mm.
that you would use to describe this journey? Like, if you were just going to pull out certain words.
I would say enlightening, very, very mutual, synchronistic. The synchronicities that surround her, I mean, synchronicities abound. Like, it's just been incredible how many synchronicities have happened around Shauna. I do believe part of her is sort of a walking spirit. Like, she's sort of got one foot tethered on this plane and another somewhere else. I feel like curiosity is a big piece of this. How many people we pass every day, we have no idea what their journeys and strengths have been. And we can learn so much from each other. So I would definitely say synchronistic, mutual, enlightening.
Say more about, for people, speak about the synchronicities, would you please?
Uh-huh.
Share about that.
So I used to say to people, I wrote about it in the book, like the banker, the baker, the person, at the Verizon store on the corner where she used to hang out. I would say, gosh, that's weird. I was just thinking about Shauna and I hadn't seen her in, a couple of weeks. Like, and there she was right there the second I was thinking about her. And people would say, oh my gosh, that happens to me all the time. One guy said, I have a Shauna feel. I can just feel when she's going to right about to appear. So I asked Shauna one day and I said, how is it that all these people feel this really interesting synchronicity around you? And she said, I think because I'm open to something else, it guides my feet to know when someone needs a reminder that we're all in something much bigger together. And then I appear.
Okay, wait. All right.
Yeah.
You got to, okay. Would you be willing to slow down and say that again to me? What she said?
She said, I asked, how come it is that it's uncanny how many synchronicities seem to happen around you, to the point where one of the guys and I met through this, and we actually went to lunch discussing all of it, and I put him in the chapter. And she said, I think that I'm open to something else, and that energy directs my feet to be in the exact place that I needed to be around that exact person to remind them that we're all in something much bigger together.
Oh my God. Does she
It gives
talk
me
about,
chills too.
does she speak about this something else?
I mean, she grew up with a stepfather that was a pastor. She goes to 4 online churches a week. So for her, that's something else. She went to Christian Heritage College. She started the basketball program there. For her, that's something else that's very much defined through the Christian lens. However, in my dissertation for my PhD, I wrote a lot about people who've had near-death experiences and people who've had dissociative identity disorder from severe childhood trauma, and how when they left the body during severe trauma, it very much their verbiage resembled what people were talking about when the soul apparently leaves the body in a near death experience, which is not, it's beyond what can be explained neurochemically. And so it started making me pause and thinking, I wonder if Shauna somehow is receptive to or taps into something that, of course, now people are talking about psychedelics and how it opens the mind a certain way. I feel like she's wired a certain way that more of that comes in. And I'll give you a really strange experience. My daughter and I were in Santa Monica randomly at a park. This has never happened before. We don't talk about squirrels. We were sitting at the park for a soccer tournament. And I said, look at the cute squirrel. It reminds me of Minnesota where I grew up. And she said, yeah, that's really cute. A second later on my phone, a text from Shauna, a picture of a squirrel. And I was like, okay, mind blown. Like, what? And I said, Shauna, that is so uncanny. I was just talking about a squirrel. And then no response. And I was just thinking, this happens with so much frequency around her that it's undeniable. And so I just feel like she's just somehow like able to tether in a way that most of us can't, or maybe we can, but we just ignore it. We tune it out. And maybe how her biology is wired. And of course she does have these mental struggles. Something shifted in a way where she can take it in.
Wow, what's so interesting, what I just heard differently
Uh-huh.
is we call them struggles. But what if they're not struggles? It's just from our
Yes.
perception point.
I love that you said that. In my dissertation, I did say that maybe people who have reached the edge of what we call sanity are actually more, sane than all of us together because they're connected to the real purpose, the real truth, you know, everything that we aspire to try to understand in this lifetime. So I do believe that they can be our biggest teachers. And you're right. It is agreed. I don't think Shauna would describe anything in her life in terms of struggle per se. When I asked her one time after the book launch, I celebrated her by giving her a lobster dinner, her first lobster dinner at age 59. And she said, I said, Shauna, how did you wake up every day? Like just one day after the other, not knowing what was going to happen. And if you would ever get out of this situation, sleeping on cardboard for 8 years. And she said, I woke up every day curious, Doc. I woke up every day just wondering, what's the day going to hold? Who am I going to talk to? What is the day going to bring? And I just thought, wow, that's
Wow.
not, she did not see that as struggle.
Wow. What have you noticed in your life about synchronicities after being with her energy? What's it like that in your life now?
So I am very aware of synchronicities. I had a brother that passed when I was in my young 20s, and I've had many interesting encounters that I believe are sort of from somewhere else. And so I'm more attuned, I think, to synchronicities. But being around Shauna, I feel like they just went on like fast forward. There's just so many of them that were just an undeniable reminder, especially when I thought that I had this horrible prognosis, just an undeniable reminder that we are sort of in this giant hug if we just sort of let ourselves remember that something is there and it's caring, it's unseen. And, you know, whether it's quantum physics that eventually like verifies it for us, or whether it's for, in my case, listening to so many near death experiencers and people who've really pushed the edge of sort of resilience through trauma. Shauna reminds me of how it's so life affirming to pay attention to all of that.
Wow. I'm so curious about your near-death experiences, like that study. What made you get into that?
So, because my brother had passed at such a young age, I had no understanding. I had no way of figuring out, you know, where did he go? What happened? And back in the day, I mean, we're talking 1988. So this wasn't hugely talked about. There was no YouTube or whatever. So I would go to the back, you know, the annals of psychiatry way in the back of a medical library, and you'd find this one journal called Thanatos, you know, which eventually became, I think, the Journal of Near Death Studies, which was incredible. But I started going to conferences and I started to hear people's stories. One that was really memorable was a man that came over from China, and his father had always been, you know, part of communist China, very much deep in the ideology, no religion, no basis for any of that. And on his deathbed said he saw Jesus. And so the son was so blown away by this whole thing that he then sought out the conference and started going. So it was like one person after another. And then I started doing research with actually, you know, setting up interviews of my own with people who had also had severe childhood trauma and asked them to compare the experiences if there was a comparison. And to most of them, it was like, no. When I was up playing with the angels, when the body was being abused, when I was, you know, there with my angel mommy, that was the same thing as when I felt like the breath left me and I went up. So I just started to believe that it's all part of the same mechanism that happens.
Well, what's interesting is that when you came on, um, I had an energy. I almost didn't make it. My son had locked himself out of the house, and
Oh no.
and I have a commitment to my children. Like I love my children.
Of course.
Family is,
Yes.
but and I could feel there's this energy in me that doesn't feel like me. And the minute I got in your presence, I felt the energy go away. Like there was, it felt like I'm into psychic work, and I'm
Uh-huh.
sorry, now it's about me, but I apologize.
Yeah.
Is your energy, I felt like I had a being in me that wasn't me. And the minute I got in your presence, I felt this energy go away.
Oh my gosh. Well, I feel like that's what happens all the time when we're around kind of like this beautiful reminder of light and that resonance. And I felt the same when you first popped on, you know, of course you sign on to Zoom and you see somebody for the first time and it's just like, oh, you know, it
Yeah.
just felt like that warm hug. It just feels like here are two people trying to understand and make sense of all of these complexities in life. We've often, you know, just held them to ourselves. And now we have the opportunity to share experiences with other people and see what they resonate with and how it can help pass the healing energy on. So,
Well, what it's showing me, and I think that I think this is what you're saying. This is what I'm making it mean,
mhm.
is the power of love.
Yes.
Your light in your love, the energy that was in my space, it couldn't be here anymore. The
Oh,
light burned it
that's
off.
beautiful. I love that. The light burned it off. Isn't that what we're kind of trying to put out there? The light can burn it off. Even that deep within, whatever, there's a tiny little flame and flicker that is not
Oh,
extinguishable, you know?
okay. Would you be willing to say more about that, please? What you just
Well, I
said
think
about the tiny little flame?
I feel like that's something I learned very early on working with children that had been very traumatized in my first child development way back, 35 plus years ago. And I remember this one little child, and I just thought, wow, there's a spark, there's a flicker in there in her heart that will never be extinguished, no matter how dark her life has been. And it had been very dark. And I saw it and I felt it. And I thought the more we can nurture that and breathe life into it and give it oxygen, the more that can start to just make everything else be okay.
I mean,
Mhm.
I'm so taken, I'm so touched by what you just said, because what I see is that you see the light in people.
Oh, I absolutely drive people crazy with it. I do see the light in people. I also know that none of us knows why we were maybe meant to interact with that person. Like, what's the bigger journey? I could never explain to you how much Shauna's daily text to me of hope and encouragement when I thought that I had literally a year to live, what that did for me. And it was equal to and on par with some of my very closest friends that I've known all my life, because she was that determined to, like, bring some light.
Okay, so wait a minute. So you had this, I'm assuming cancer or something.
Well, I had a tumor in my clavicle. And so on all these scans, it looked very ominous. And it looked like, everything that the doctors were saying was that's usually a 2% chance survival. They, this is what I was living with in my reality until I got a biopsy like 6 weeks later. And the biopsy confirmed I do live with a cancer, but it's very different than what they thought and a completely different type of prognosis, which is why I love what Deepak Chopra says, listen to your diagnosis, but not your prognosis. Um, but it was a horrifying time for me. I had, young kids. They were all teenagers. I mean, everybody depended on me. And I would sit out late at night staring at the ocean. I live by the ocean, fortunately. And I would just be like, what is this glorious sadness? Like this deep connection with something so much bigger, but this deep sadness that I'm going to have to leave all this here behind. And so having Shauna's text come in and just, maybe 5 a.m, hey doc, just thinking of you right now, just thought you might want to know that like everything's going to be okay. And it was like, how would I have known all those years prior that she would become such a beautiful, vital part of my also healing?
Oh my God, this is where I also believe like the light inside of you can transform the disease inside of you.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I was just at the conference for integrative medicine and mental health, and so many people were talking about exactly what you just said, that, so much of what we bring, even my doctor, my oncologist said that. So he said, I want you to take a year off of worrying about this because anxiety will breed this. And I've seen it so many times with my patients that the ones who try to keep finding positivity and reason to be here in the light, they just do better. And I believe there's a lot of truth to that we bring, hope and we bring courage. And those two things, courage to maybe try the treatments, hope to know that there will be a better outcome, you know, what do we have to lose by trying those approaches?
Oh my God, I love that. Wow. How have you watched? It seems like your heart has um, opened and
Mm.
expanded through this.
Oh, absolutely. So, I mean, this is always my personality. However, being able to be on this journey, and I didn't plan it from that first kind of God impulse to say, let me help her get off the streets. Like she is suffering. She needs a hot shower. Like from that moment, and then me with my sort of like loyal, tenacious nature, I was like, this, she's never going back on the street. It was like, I don't care. I mean, it was a rift in my marriage. My husband was like, we don't have money to keep supporting another person. I was selling all my super high fashion boots in my closet to like Buffalo Exchange to make sure I had one more night's hotel stay for her.
Oh,
And it was just, it was just something, it was like an imperative. Like I knew I had to do this. And again, taking a chance on somebody, and there are so many unforeseen benefits if that's how you're choosing to look at it and approach life in a humanitarian way. And in the way that she's been able to educate people about some of her condition with her intersex condition. I've now written papers that talk about the human rights imperatives with the United Nations, that Biden had written about the rights of intersex people. I mean, I never thought I'd be speaking about some of this stuff, and I speak about it with complete passion and conviction because I see how Shauna has been so, misunderstood. So,
Oh my God, this is where well, I think you're inviting people. This is what I think. This is Anna Scott's
uh-huh,
perspective.
uh-huh.
Is that you're inviting people to see people not how you think you see them, but to see the light in them.
Yes, to see the God in them, and to whatever you want to call that light, that spirit, that universal
Oh,
something,
wow.
magic, beauty. Yeah. I
Okay,
know in
so
my life it's served me to approach life that way because I'm
all right.
happy.
So when you like, it's such a beautiful invitation, but it's from such a different, like, what I love about your perspective that you're not taking it from the religious, like,
Yeah.
Shabbat, like,
Yeah.
namaste.
Yeah.
You're seeing it just human being to human being.
Yes. I don't know what you would call that, a religion of, humanitarianism. I have no idea. I am fortunate. I believe I'm fortunate that I grew up in a family where we went to the Buddhist temple, then we went to the Hindu temple, then we went to the Christian Church of Mary. Then it's like my parents were very much about giving us like the idea that we were all world citizens first and that we are all human beings first. And my parents have done a lot of philanthropy in their lifetime and very much about the people, whether they're helping refugees or whether they're helping, the opera. It's like they're all over the place, just seeing the beauty of what we're here to enjoy and experience.
Oh my God. There's what I'm hearing you offer is heaven on earth.
Ah, okay, now that just gave me those tingles. Yeah, I mean, isn't that what I don't know if you know Anita Morjani?
Oh yeah.
And yeah, okay. So she talks about that. Like heaven is not, she had this profound healing and near death experience. And, I've been at various conferences with her over the years, and it's there is the ability to create what we think is out there for us afterwards, here and now. I mean, it's in front of us, even in the most unseen places. When I go downtown, let's say I'm going to a Broadway show and I see a lot of unhoused people, a lot of times I'll bring little things, but a lot of times I'm just like, hi, and like someone's maybe peeking out underneath their thing. It's like there's still a human being there, and there's still a moment to just share an ounce of life and goodness and something. So to me, that is a heaven. Relationships are a heaven on earth for sure.
The amount of love that you have, it's like you don't fear it.
Mm, yeah, I would say that is me. Yeah.
That you don't fear what their circumstances.
Yeah. I mean, okay. I think it's true to say that people who find a lot of light have also experienced a lot of dark. And I had a wonderful, beautiful family growing up. But my first husband he had been adopted from Bogota, Colombia at 5 years old. And he had a horrendous trauma history. And I was 17 when I met him in high school. And had no idea what post-traumatic stress was, how people cope through that much trauma. And so I went 16 years into that stuff with him deep. And it was hard and it was very traumatic for both of us. However, I did learn how to also start to spiral in a life affirming spiral out. And we
Oh,
together learned all of those healing things that can happen when trauma occupies a third party in the relationship. We learned how to sort of move through that. And so everything that happened in life is just sort of, it keeps spiraling to find the light. I don't know what that is, but it's like
oh
a
wow. That's
mechanism.
that's the hope message. Like
Yeah.
I mean, usually I say, okay, so we're coming to the end. And so this is my message. And then I want to hear your message at the end. What I'm saying is keep looking for the light. That's the theme of this.
Ah,
I would say there's a pony in the manure and there is a
yeah.
light in the darkness. What's your key message?
Yeah. And for me, it's take a chance on people. You'll find that light in some of the most unlikely places and you'll be astounded, just astounded with what you can then co-create. So,
So, Dr. Harrison, did I get
mhm.
that right? Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And where do people find about you and your book and more about what you're up to in life? Can you let us know?
Okay, so the book is on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, any of those websites. You can go to my website, which is soulwisesolutions.com. So SOULWISE solutions.com. And we have all of Shauna's story, all the testimonials. The mayor of Palm Springs wrote a beautiful testimonial because she's friends with her now just from meeting her. And then we have a lot of social media, Soulwise team on Instagram and all her huge likes on TikTok. So I would love for people to read the book and be inspired. There's so much in her story that will give you hope.
It's just beautiful. I can't thank you enough.
Oh, and I feel so much gratitude because when it popped on, I was like, oh, I just felt this kindred spirit. So
Yeah,
I feel it from
good.
you as well. So just so you
Thank
know.
you.
Yeah.
Okay, all that will be written up. And I hope you enjoy it. And if you like this podcast, share it with somebody. We want to spread the light. Thank
Oh,
you.
yes.